And here's a tutorial on the Event Rental System's pricing rules. To get to this, you'll go to System Setup from the main menu, and then go to Price Rules, which right now is 8. By the time you watch this, since we are making some updates, that may be a slightly different number, but go to Pricing Rules and you'll get in here. You'll notice that by default it starts with main as the main set of rules. Each one of these things that we put down here, although at first glance you might think that main is just a rule, but it's actually a whole set of rules, and we can get into that by clicking on edit here, and we can take a look at what that is. So in our particular business, we do the base cost, which is the lowest price. So if you offer, say, a 4 and an 8-hour rental, it would probably be the base cost you would usually refer to as your 4-hour rental, and then we're going to add on for extra time. So what we do is we set the prices in our inventory, and then we come in here and make a set of rules. This first rule that we made was set the base cost to 1 hour, between 1 hour and 4 hours, to rentals of any value. So we just say if they rent between 1 and 4 hours, just charge what we put in as our inventory price. But then we say anything between 5 and 8 hours, add $20 to the base cost if it's over $50. Now you might be asking, why would we care if it says over 50? That's because if you rent out chairs and say they're normally $1 or $2 a piece, you don't want it adding $20 to every chair on the order. So we set an arbitrary point that may or may not exclude your concessions. So it's just up to you as to how you want to set that up. I'm going to go into the details here, and you'll see how this was done. On each one of these rules, we had add, subtract, or set amount to, and then base cost, or you can do a series of other things. So we're going to, now that you've got the basic idea as to how this was made, I'm going to go back in and actually make a whole new set of rules for you. And make sure if you ever make changes to make sure to hit continue. So we're going to go into pricing rules, and then we're going to create a new pricing rule. Move that up on the screen here. Okay, so we'll call this, say, water. So we could make a set of rules just for our water units. And description is what you tell your customers to describe your pricing. So you should be able to make your pricing straightforward enough that you can actually describe it in a paragraph. And if it's not easy to describe, maybe you ought to consider reviewing your pricing. So let's say that our 1 to 4 hour rentals are regular price, and book your slide for all day fun for $40 more, we could say. So let's go in and make a rule that'll do that. You actually, for this particular scenario, don't need to do anything under price display or price options. That's for some more advanced stuff. Make sure you hit update. And now that we have a basic description as to what our customers are going to see, let's start making some rules. So we'll say add new rule, and we're going to say set amount to, this is the first one I always make, base cost, conditions of rentals of a duration range, because we're saying between 1 and 4 hours, we're not saying 3 hours in this particular case at least. And we're going to say rentals of any value, because even if it's a chair, we're going to charge the base price. We're going to say 1 to 4 hour rentals and hit apply. Okay, so that puts our water slides at regular price for 4 hours. But now if we want to say add to base cost of a duration range, again because we're talking about more than 1 hour set, and we're only going to be applying this to the water slide, so I don't actually have to worry about the chairs in this particular case. So we can say any value again, but let's say that I might someday put chairs or something really small into this category. I can always say over a certain amount, and that way you'll see how this works. We'll say add $40 between 5 and 8-hour rentals over, and I tend to pick $50. If you rent concessions at say $65, then you might want to set this at $66, something like that, but let's just say $50 and hit apply. So now if we have a water slide that's over $50, it's going to be regular price for the first 4 hours right here, and then it's going to add $40 to anything between 5 and 8 hours of a rental, as long as the rental is over $50. Now let's add a couple more rules just to make sure that we have all the bases covered here. And this is still with the water slide, so we're going to say add to rentals of a certain duration this time, and I'll show you why in just a second here. We're going to say rentals, just to keep the theme going, over a certain amount, and I'm going to set it to the same price. Now if you wanted to say that up to 8 hours is a certain price, but if you want it past 8 hours it's going to cost you more, then you can do that. But we're going to say anything over 8 hours but still not truly overnight, we're going to call that 1 day, and we're going to say $40 or $50 again. So this is basically saying it doesn't matter whether you book it between 5 and 8 hours, or if you book it anytime up to 12 hours, it's still going to be the same price. But you do need to specify over the 8-hour period in case somebody wants a 9 or a 10-hour rental. If you don't have a rule set up for a certain set of circumstances, it will not let them book. Because otherwise it would have defaulted to the base price, which would be bad. So we made it so that it will not allow you to book if you don't have a rule set up for that amount of time. And let's do one more, and we'll say the same basic idea, except we're going to tack on a little bit more because we're doing an overnight now. So we're going to say add to base cost a duration range, and we're going to say it's not a range this time, it's a certain duration. It's going to be something called overnight. Now overnight is determined by your cutoff, next day cutoff time. So if they book it past that time, it's actually going to count as 2 days. But let's say that you have an 11 a.m. cutoff time. If they book it until 12, it's going to count as 2 days. If they book it until 10, it's going to count as an overnight. So we're going to say over a certain amount, and we're going to say add, say, $60 to base cost for rentals that are overnight over $50. Now if you notice, there are a couple more settings. We've got 2, 3, and 4 day rentals down here. So if you want to do multi-day bookings, you'll need to set up pricing rules for those as well. But at this point you probably have a pretty good idea as to how this goes down. And that's it. All you do is hit continue and you're all set. Now I would like to show one special circumstance. There are some folks out there that do pricing rules where there's a base cost and then they want to charge an hourly rate for each hour after that. So let's do one more rule that will apply to something like that. And by the way, now that we have this thing that says water, all you do is click in the pricing rules and select water for all your water items, and those will now run by these rules as opposed to the default, which is main, as determined up here. Okay, so let's go back in and make one more that would work if we wanted to say, let's say we have a trackless train, for example, and we charge, say, $400 for the first 2 hours and then $50 an hour for each hour after that. So we would say set amount to base cost for a duration range any value, because we're really going to make this, in this particular case, this would just be called train or something like that. And we're going to say for 1 to 2 hour rentals. So no matter whether they pick 1 or 2 hours, it's going to charge them the base cost, which you're going to set at, say, $400. Okay, and then we're going to do one more rule. And please don't get confused that I'm doing it within water. This is just to speed things up here. We're going to say add to base cost conditions, and now we're going to do a hourly rentals of a duration range, and we're going to say rentals of any value, and we're going to add $50 to the base cost for each hour between, say, 3 and 8 hours. So that's how you would set it, so that your base cost is the base cost for your minimum order, which is 2 hours, which would be set to, say, 400, and then we would say add $50 to base cost for each hour between 3 and 8 hours and hit apply. So that's how you would do something special like that, whether you're doing a mechanical bull or a train ride, something like that. Let's say that you're a performer and you're doing a basic magic show, but then for additional money you do face painting or balloons. You could set it for that as well. So I hope that clears up some questions on pricing rules. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or send us an email in the help section. Thanks.